I suspected him, and determined to test his sincerity. Sincerity. It seems like a profanation of the word to write it in connection with such a monster, so I asked him point blank, "Why may I not go tonight?" "Because, dear sir, my coachmen and horses are away on a mission." "But I would walk with pleasure. I want to get away at once." He smiled, such a soft, smooth, diabolical smile that I knew there was some trick behind his smoothness. He said, "And your baggage?" "I do not care about it. I can send for it some other time." The Count stood up and said with a sweet courtesy which made me rub my eyes, it seemed so real, "You English have a saying which is close to my heart, for its spirit is that which rules our boyars. Welcome the coming, speed the parting guest. Come with me, my dear young friend, not an hour shall you wait in my house against your will, though sad am I at your going, and that you so suddenly desire it. Come." With stately gravity, he, with the lamp, preceded me down the stairs and along the hall. Suddenly he stopped. Hark! Close at hand came the howling of many wolves. It was almost as if the sound sprang up at the rising of his hand, just as the music of a great orchestra seems to leap under the baton of the conductor. After a pause of a moment, he proceeded, in his stately way, to the door, drew back the ponderous bolts, unhooked the heavy chains, and began to draw it open. To my intense astonishment, I saw that it was unlocked. Suspiciously, I looked all around, but could see no key of any kind. As the door began to open, the howling of the wolves without grew louder and angrier. Their red jaws with champing teeth, and their blunt clawed feet as they leaped came in through the opening door. I knew that to struggle at the moment against the Count was useless. With such allies as these at his command, I could do nothing. But still the door continued slowly to open, and only the Count's body stood in the gap. Suddenly it struck me that this might be the moment and means of my doom. I was to be given to the wolves, and at my own instigation. There was a diabolical wickedness in the idea great enough for the Count, and at the last chance I cried out, "Shut the door! I shall wait until morning!" And I covered my face with my hands to hide my tears of bitter disappointment. With one sweep of his powerful arm, the Count threw the door shut, and the great bolts clanged and echoed through the hall as they shot back into their places. In silence we returned to the library, and after a minute or two I went to my own room. The last I saw of Count Dracula was his kissing his hand to me, with a red light of triumph in his eyes and a smile that Judas in hell might be proud of. Jonathan Harker's Journal. Welcome, my friends, to the Dracula Podcast. Back with you once again, it's the Dracula Podcast with Frank Stella, where we are critically analyzing and analytically comparing Bram Stoker's 1897 novel Dracula with the NBC television series that goes by the same name. Frank Stella along with you once again, and I'm glad to be joined with you here for another fun-filled podcast talking about our favorite story, Dracula. And we're covering 2 episodes tonight because I was unable to record a podcast for last week. Unfortunately, some junk came up in my life. And how are you? Are you having a good week? I hope so. Yeah, the junk that I refer to is one of those things where you have to kind of spend a lot more money than you had hoped that you would on such things, such as your computer craps out for no good reason, so you take it into the shop thinking, well, I might just need a new power supply. Oh no, they tell you your whole motherboard's shot to hell, so how would you like to proceed? Or you go to the dentist thinking you'll just need a simple checkup or a cleaning. Congratulations, you have multiple cavities, so how would you like to go from here? That's great. Oh, and don't even get me started on my car. They tell me I need to change my battery because it's wearing out. Okay, I changed my battery, that's $100 or so, $150, whatever. Then they're telling me, oh, by the way, you need like a $700 brake job, and you need new tires, and this and that. And I'm going, oh my gosh, why don't I just buy a new car? You know, I mean, I got this current car that I'm driving. It's an older car. It's got near 200,000 miles on it. It's a real beater. You know, I got that for pennies. And now I have to do this like $1,000 repair job. Like, why don't I just buy a new car? Well, I could buy a new car, but I just put a new battery into my old car. So, oh, what am I going to do? Well, you know who never has cavities? Dracula. Or does he? Well, we're covering 2 episodes this week, and I hope you're keeping up. Don't forget that this particular television show is on Hulu, so you can keep up that way. I DVR it, so I am one of those guys who gets to skip the commercials. Well, where do we begin here? Dracula is up to his old tricks again. He's in bed with Lady Jane quite a lot, and she's got apparently no idea that Dracula, or Alexander Grayson, is this crazy vampire, this walking undead that she knows is somewhere stalking the streets of London. She's got no idea. So that's kind of like this huge elephant in the room that the audience is let in on. Very interesting that her and her companions just have no idea. I thought they were kind of catching on there towards the end of the second episode when she snuck up on that, bloody body there at the end. I thought, okay, maybe she knows, it's been Alexander Grayson this whole time. That's the guy we've been looking for. Apparently she hasn't caught on because she keeps sleeping with him, just in bed with the enemy there. So there's that. Also, the seers that she calls them that have been able to track their vampires. Well, Dracula was able to get back to them, and actually it was Van Helsing, apparently, who poisoned them with some kind of paralytic. It not inhibits. What's the word for what's the other word for it? It's the opposite of inhibit. It induces paralysis. Then, as they're lying there still and practically motionless, he smashes them in the face with a hammer. So we got to enjoy that. Van Helsing, evil Van Helsing, naughty. What are we gonna do? Okay, well. There's a lot going on here. That's the Dracula side of things. Oh, and he's also advancing in his energy industry efforts. He got his coolant that he needed, and now he just needs to acquire some new casing for that stuff that was bursting that almost smashed Mina in the face. And Dracula and Mina have been spending a little bit more time together, and this is more the personal side of things. Mina and Jonathan, as we talked about last time, having a little bit of trouble in their relationship. They had a little bit of a stagnation period. They weren't seeing each other, weren't really communicating. Mina was really concerned about their relationship. She wasn't about to give up on it, as I thought maybe we were, but I thought, nah, it's too soon. We're only in episode 2. They're not about to end the Jonathan-Mina thing yet. Well, Alexander Grayson really had a hand on both Jonathan and Mina getting back together. He had a talking to them both about, just about life and love and the pursuit of happiness, I guess. And so the guy who's got this big crush on Mina is the one who gets them back together. Oh, boy, I know how that goes. Anyway, so Jonathan and Mina got back together. Interestingly enough, Mina proposes to Jonathan. Boy, Mina, you sure are a modern one. Mina proposes to Jonathan, so now they're engaged. So there's that. And Alexander Grayson, Dracula, he's not exactly torn up about it. He said something like, I should be angry at myself, but then his guy Renfield points out that, well, at least you're keeping her in your sphere, close but not too close. So that was kind of interesting. I feel like that's the kind of conversation me and my 20-somethings have when we have our sleepovers and talk about girls. We overanalyze things, but what are you going to do? I don't know why I'm telling you all this. Anyway, so, Mina now is also officially Dr. Van Helsing's assistant. She got that internship that she wanted. Somewhere in there, and during that time when Jonathan and Mina were apart, Lucy Goosey, and Mina had a few drunken escapades where they would go out and take a bunch of shots, and it was quite a shot in the arm. And which caused Mina to be late to one of her classes, and Van Helsing to question whether she was worthy of the internship. Well, she promised that she'd do better, and looks like she's on the road to recovery there. And speaking of which, we'll talk more about alcoholism later on in this podcast because of a news story that broke over the weekend. But in the meantime, what else do we have in this story? Lord, whatever his name is, Lord with the beard, Gaylord, whatever his name was, he got killed for betraying his Order of the Dragon by giving up the cooling patents, I suppose, to Alexander Grayson, which he was looked at as pursuing his own interests over the interests of the Order. Really, he didn't want to have to explain himself because Dracula put him in an awkward position where he didn't want to have to give up that he was gay. So they went and killed him, stuck a blade right in his chest. There was a lot of blood in this past couple episodes, a lot of cutting and whipping and bleeding and all kinds of crazy business. And now that these seers are gone, it looks like more and more vampires are headed into London. I'm not sure how exactly that relates, but maybe it's harder for the huntsmen to track the vampires, so more and more of them are coming in. We saw that scene where Lady Jane was on that train car and faced off against what looked like 3 vampires. That was pretty sick, I have to say. That was a really cool scene. Dracula's old friend, what was his name? Joseph? I think Yusuf was what he was calling him, came and stayed with Dracula for a little while. He was really an impulsive guy, very much impetuous, however you want to describe it. He was ready to go to war. He wasn't buying into the tactics that Alexander Grayson was using to try and get to the Order of the Dragon by getting to their pocketbooks. He wanted all-out wars and battles. Eventually used that to his own disadvantage, really, by luring him over to Lady Jane's house, whereby Dracula killed him in front of Lady Jane and winning back his old friends with benefits, who actually told him she wanted to terminate that relationship, and so Dracula got her back, also getting rid of his friend Yusuf, who didn't want to do things Dracula's way. One thing I'm looking for in this series to see is Dracula ever going to prey upon Lucy, because that's actually the first person he goes to that we know of when he gets to London in Bram Stoker's book. Lucy's the first person he preys upon. She dies kind of a really slow death. And one thing I want to point out what this show is doing is when Dracula bites someone, or any vampire for that matter, this show is making it look really gruesome, really gory. They pretty much are dead that very night. They turn into a vampire maybe that same day or the next night, whatever it may be. In Bram Stoker's novel, it's not that quick, and it's not that gruesome. Dracula it's almost like a mosquito bite of sorts. Dracula will bite someone, on the throat, and there'll be just these tiny little marks, these tiny little holes where the blood came out, and the person has lost blood and will probably feel weak and anemic or something the next day. And if the person goes on and Dracula doesn't come, or a vampire doesn't come back to them, they'll probably recover and never think anything of it. However, if all their blood is drained and if they die from the blood loss of the vampire, that's what turns them into a vampire. It seems to be dying of blood loss due to vampiric biting and sucking of blood is what turns you into a vampire. It's not just, one bite and you're done. Anyway, my point is, I'm not sure if Dracula is ever going to go for Lucy in this particular show. He seems to not really show her any great interest, not compared to the interest that he's showing to Mina or Lady Jane being in a more sexual way, which is its own kind of weirdness. But I'm not sure what part really Lucy's going to play, because so far Lucy hasn't played that big of a part. She's Mina's friend, and of course these movies and shows always try and make her look much more flirtatious than she appears to be in Bram Stoker's book. Now, in the book, she did receive 3 proposals all in one day, and really the most flirtatious thing, and it's not even really... She was saying that, in the book, she was saying, it's too bad that I have to disappoint 2 of these men and only can say yes to one of them. It's a shame I can't marry all 3. I think she just said that more to be funny, really, than, seriously. She's not a polygamist. But Lucy always kind of gets a rap in these movies and shows as being really kind of flirtatious and slutty and weird, and I'm just like, it's kind of a risky thing to do, because Lucy's really supposed to be kind of a sweetheart and really kind of pure, I think. And that really goes for just about everybody in the story, other than Dracula, of course. But what are you going to do? That's the way this thing goes. You gotta keep the public interested, right? You gotta keep us turned on, otherwise we're going to change the channel, right? Buddy. That's a lot to cover. There's a lot to cover in these 2 episodes. I guess if you were to take it scene by scene, there's a lot we could unpack. But this particular couple of episodes didn't really seem like it was throwing a lot at us in terms of a lot really to talk about as far as new things go. Dracula's plan is progressing. He's making all the right moves. He's kind of infiltrating Jonathan and Mina's relationship. He's kind of manipulating it weirdly. He's not taking Mina by force or even really, making a bid for her or really making a move on her. He's there in his own way, and he's keeping things kind of cool. He's being a part of their relationship, but not trying to necessarily infiltrate. Although there was one scene where Mina was saying it almost feels uncomfortably like he's a part of our relationship almost. He's more a part of our relationship than is warranted. So she was saying it feels kind of weird. And Jonathan then revealed to her that it was Alexander Grayson that really kind of talked him into seeing that he was a fool for thinking that Mina should just be kind of a stay-at-home wife and not a career girl like she wanted to be. And so, Jonathan being a little bit hypocritical there and, pursuing his own dreams, but not allowing or not really wanting, the woman he loved to pursue her own dreams. So Grayson calls him out on that. And so Jonathan breaks that news to Mina. And so now she knows, it's kind of like Grayson is winning points with Mina in the back of her mind, which is the way he seems to be going about this, which it'll be interesting to see how that plays out as far as the world of this TV show goes. It's all just very weird to me as a fan of the book because, again, and I know I've brought this up before, but Dracula in the Bram Stoker novel that I'm used to, he has no interest in romance, he has no interest in sex, he has no interest in his former wife. He's just possessed by this curse that he's under, and he just has this lust for blood, and that's all he's interested in. Any sort of interest that he seems to have that is other than that, really all will point back to how he can best lure people into giving him his blood or being a part of his will to get more blood. And that's really all that there is to it. And it might sound overly simplistic, but I really think that you just have the best villain when it's based on that. He doesn't care about corruption in business. He doesn't care about love. He doesn't care about journalism or PR or anything. He's just blood. That's all it is. The blood is the life to Dracula. There's a couple news items, I suppose, that I'd like to bring up. One of them came up after the airing of this last episode here over the weekend. Apparently, Jonathan Rhys-Meyers, who not only plays Dracula and Alexander Grayson, but is also a producer on the show, it just came out that a lot of his salary was withheld by NBC until the end of the shooting for these episodes. That was to incentivize him to stay away from alcohol or substance abuse, which he apparently has a history of substance abuse and alcoholism. So they wanted to make sure that he got the episodes in, and it's just a short 10-episode season, and so they wanted to get those in before he messed anything up with any major alcohol drunken episode. I don't really know what he would have done if they hadn't done this. I'm just speculating, but apparently NBC did that little precaution to keep him from, just keep him on the straight and narrow, I suppose. Apparently the amount that they withheld was $100,000 per episode. Well, I'd like to make $100 per podcast. Another interesting thing that came up in the news, the ratings really for this show have dropped off, especially since that pilot. The pilot episode did really well, and now apparently it's down to less than half of what that pilot episode was. So according to an article on TV by the Numbers, they're saying that Dracula is likely to be canceled. I suppose it could turn around. I'm pretty sure they'll finish out the 10-episode season, but that might be it for NBC's Dracula. Just 10 and done. So keep your fingers crossed if you're into the show. If you are not into the show, I don't really know why you're listening to this podcast. But if you're a fan of the book, I really don't know what to tell you, because I don't know. Maybe one day us book lovers will be vindicated is the word I suppose I'm looking for. But until then, it looks like this particular adaptation might just be toast. Well, 10 episodes this season may have lasted, but Bram Stoker's novel remains timeless. Well, there's my rant for this particular week. I'm sure there will be more to come. I do thank you for joining me for these talks. I really do appreciate your time, and I appreciate spending this time with you and having these conversations. I'll tell you what, though, it'll feel a little bit more like a real conversation if we were to get a little back and forth going. Ideally, I think the best back and forth medium for this to take place would be on the Facebook page. Find this podcast on Facebook. It's Dracula Podcast with Frank Stella. We're also on Twitter at Dracula Podcast, or you can send me an email anytime at draculapodcast@gmail.com. I would love to get your thoughts on where the show is headed or what you've thought so far of these episodes. Maybe I was able to get you into the book, perchance. I doubt it, because I can't apparently get anyone into the book, try as I may. Oh, woe is me. Next episode is called The Devil's Waltz, and according to IMDb, it is airing on November 29th. That's the Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, so it looks like we're taking a week off here. So episode 5 will be airing the day after Thanksgiving, so keep that in mind if you are following along the live broadcasts. The Dracula Podcast is a production of the Southgate Media Group, and until next time we talk again, my friends, good night.